Let's take the newspaper, page number 3. Now on page number 3, sorry, I have the wrong newspaper with me. Page number 3. If you see this, at Bharat Mandapam, India displays soft power. Now this is regarding art and culture. Now you can expect a question on this in your prelims next year. So what all kind of and in fact I would urge you that after G20 you should go and visit this mandapam, and also you should visit the Pradhan Mantri's Sangralaya, because there is one thing reading about it, and there's absolutely another thing that when you visit this place. And of course you will get time in your preparation to actually take out a day or so. So you should visit. And what does it show? It shows we've spent so there could be a question in mains as well, that we've spent so much on G20 holding 2500 crores on this. Is it fine? It's something like whether you should host Olympics or not. But this is even more important, because this is in Olympics it's just sports. Here this is going to show you your soft power in the soft power as well as hard power in terms of your negotiation skills. So this entire article is talking about where you have taken different stuff from. So you've taken some of the entire one of the entire walls is with respect to languages that are represented in India. Then you have different kinds of forms of different cultures, different textiles. All of this is there in this particular article. Then apart from that, you have soft power showcasing the 32 essential yoga asanas there. Then you have paintings, and then you have carpets. So basically this article is I'm not getting into the article, but this is a compendium of different kinds of arts and cultures that exist in India, and that is being showcased. So one thing is to read this article, the other thing is to go and visit and probably take a couple of notes that this is what is there in this particular piece. Then another article which you can quote in maybe in your essay or maybe in your ethics is that how women are being demanded in India, especially in Punjab, for moving to Canada and Australia. So there's this exam called as IELTS, and in IELTS, what this exam is basically, it's an exam for English proficiency. And if you want to go to Australia, if you want to go to New Zealand, if you want to go to Canada or UK, you need to clear IELTS. Now, typical Punjabi boys are not able to clear this exam because they are a little light on their English skills. So what they are asking for in the ad section is, in the matrimonial ad section, is that we need an IELTS clear girl. We will support the entire education, we'll support everything, and all you need to go to do there is just go there and ask for a spouse visa. So this again ethics, you can put it in some kind of ethics of some kind of corruption, and then these boys are now being duped, which they deserve to be duped actually. So this is the other ethics related issue. Maybe you can note it down somewhere. Then these are not the important ones. Let's move to page number 8. Page number 8, you have satellite data, heat sensing, robots, startups help 35 cities plug network leaks, water network leaks, and recharge borewells. So this is an example how startups can help, using technology can help in better governance. So these examples could be there where smart cities are being built through the participation of startups. So here you have mentioned that there is this Amrut program that you should be aware about. Atal Mission for Rejuvenation of Urban Transformation 2.0. So there was 1.0 and there's 2.0. And what has happened is that the Union Ministry, the Union Housing and Urban Affairs Ministry, along with the Administrative Staff College of India, has launched the India Water Pitch pilot scale startup challenge. So basically, startups have been invited and they've been called at how do we make our cities more water resistant, and in the sense that more water is a typical issue for all major cities. There were 76 startups that were selected and they were given some amount of money. And these startups, if you see the third column, these startups, for example, the startup in Udaipur has come out with a satellite-based leak management system, and which was basically seeing the leaks between Jaisalmer Lake and Patel Circle, and it found 47 leaks, which was costing them around 80 lakhs a month. So again, use of technology, use of government would not have been able to do technology, use of private sector, and how PPP things can work, and startups can work in governance as well. Then second, in drought-prone region of Latur, a startup Urduvam is using patented technology called bore chargers to revive defunct dry bore wells. It is using these robotic arms to make perforations within the casing to allow percolation of water at different depths. So basically, what it is doing is you have a deep bore well, and then this robotic arm is going down, and then it's making some small incisions in the earth and getting some recharging that particular bore well. So again, use of technology, and then you have some use of technology in Delhi as well. So, but this is an example that you can quote in ethics. Just write down these two examples, and then you will be able to use them there. Then let's go to our editorial, the meat of. We have a couple of really good articles there. Let's go for the smaller article first, a partial remedy. Now we'll read about this in the explained section as well. Now we already know that India is called as the pharmacy of the world. Now and because we provide generic products at very cheap cost. But what has happened over the last 1.5 years is that Indian medicines, especially cough syrups and eye drops, have been found contaminated, which has been causing blindness, as well as that. That's not okay, but still it's not loss of life. But the problem is that some of our cough syrups has led to deaths of many children throughout the world because of kidney failure. Because again, you have these suppressants and you have these chemicals. Now what has happened is that because of this loss of life in both Gambia, it started with Gambia in Africa last year, to Uzbekistan, and some of our cough syrups were even found in the Pacific Ocean in some of the countries. The government of India and WHO basically to exercise to see how many of the generic medicine producers comply with the good quality manufacturing of pharmaceuticals. And that is where it was found that only a handful, only 25% of our pharmaceutical companies are complying to the good management practices. And this is what the government is doing. The government is now clamping down on that, and government has given the big manufacturers 6 months and the small manufacturers 1 month to comply with all these measures. We'll talk about all these measures in these in the explained section, but let us cover this. Now, the government directive last week asking medicine manufacturers to abide by the WHO standard is a much needed move. There were 3 adverse incidents in October 2022. 60 children in Gambia died because of kidney complication. Then because of the cough syrups made in pharmaceuticals, you can maybe remember made in pharmaceuticals. And then Maricon Biotech in Noida again caused 19 deaths in Uzbekistan. In March, Cameroon had said that there were cough syrups which caused 12 fatalities, and there is this toxic content that is found in Indian generics. Then and right now what we see is, if you see the next paragraph, according to the health ministry data, only 20% of pharmaceutical units in India have the WHO certification. Majority of companies outsource their production to MSMEs, and there is no regulation there, where the quality is compromised for cost, poorly staffed, under resourced state regulatory bodies, which we'll read that we have only 2 national regulatory bodies and only one state regulatory bodies, which is woefully low, and they're only staffed up to 40%. So there are no umpires in this entire sector. If there are no umpires, how will you have a check on the quality? So and this is what it says, that Haryana's drug monitoring department was functioning with less than 40% of its sanctions, and the country has only 29 government run and only 2 central drug laboratories, which is inefficient. So this is something that we need. 2 good articles, one on Data Protection Act and the other. Now, I've always told you, I've been telling you that when you are writing answers, have some novelty to it. Now, what I want you to do is, there is this book called Climate: How Neuroscience Can Help Solve Our Environmental Done. I want you to write this name. Alright, I just want you to write this name. The summary of this article, you give it to Bard and you give the summary. If you can find the summary of the book also, if you don't have time to read this book, that's okay. But I want you to start your answer with this. If you get a question in your mains, whenever you're writing mains, if you mains with respect to climate change and what we need to do, or an essay or an ethics, wherever you find this thing, you start your answer with this, or you write this particular approach in some there. This will show that you are not just an idiotic aspirant sitting in Rajendra Nagar or Mukherjee Nagar and just mugging up. This shows innovation. This shows that you are very broad-minded. So this is how you approach, and you can always find. Even if you don't have to read books. What you can do is, suppose you're talking about internal security. Now you want some quotes on internal security. You can either ask Bard to give it, or you can ask Bard or ChatGPT that give me some books, some very famous books on internal security, and then ask it to give me some quotations from it, some particular quotations on a particular issue, and then you have the material, you have the adage, you have the everything abstract with you. Now you use it in your answer instead of reading the book itself. Reading book, of course, is good, but you should also have time for that. Right now, most of you are prepared. So, but I'm telling you the secret of getting marks, folks. I've recently, so this book, Vikram Singh Mehta says that climate, how neuroscience can help solve environmental. But the essence of this article is that how do we change our psychology? How do we change our psychology to understand that every action that we are going to take, it is going to be environmental friendly or not. For example, I'll give you a small example. Long time back, I had posted a post-it on my car window. At that point of time, people used to throw whatever they had in their car, they used to throw out. And now people don't do that. But I had pasted this on my car's your window panel, that please do not throw anything outside. And that led to anyone who was sitting in my car was very conscious that even if he or she is eating something, he needs something called as that in every there is some environmental cost to it. More than that, another couple of things which I expect in this year's mains to be asked is that how can the problem of global warming that respects no border be resolved in a world that is driven by nationalism and self? Are the circumstances that might change? Are there circumstances that might encourage humanity to stop behaving like a frog in a pot, of tepid water on boil, slowly and surely getting scalded? So this is what humans are facing right now. And the UN General Secretary has recently said that we have now entered the era of global boiling. You need to remember this term as well, and you need to remember that this has been given by the UN Secretary. Then the hottest week, we already know this news because we've been reading this, that this year we've surpassed the 1.5 degrees many times. You can give number of examples: the forest fires in America, the kind of heat wave that Europe has gone through, Xinjiang in China having a temperature. All of these are examples of very high temperature. And in fact, you can also give this anecdote in your answers. You can write this down. That's why it's a very important article, that a couple of scientists from University of Copenhagen have published peer-reviewed paper. That is what you give the context, that you're not just firing in the dark. You have the context that there are a couple of scientists who have given a peer-reviewed paper, and which talks about that the Gulf Stream, North Atlantic Gulf Stream. Now, what is this North Atlantic Gulf Stream? The North Atlantic Gulf Stream basically takes water. You need to see your geography. It takes water from the Gulf of Mexico. It's basically a stream which takes water from the Gulf of Mexico, the warm water from Gulf of Mexico, to UK and the northern part of Europe. So this is a warm water stream which leads to what? The warming, a little bit of warming of the northern hemisphere, and a lot of rainfall that England and all these France and all these countries get is because of the northern Atlantic Gulf Stream. And they say that this Gulf Stream will collapse between 2025 and 95, most probably in 2000, have a profound impact on the cooling of the northern hemisphere and the heating of the southern hemisphere, and catastrophic impact. Then we have been talking about certain measures that we will build. Renewables, green hydrogen, and all of this we've been talking about. But all of these are necessary but not sufficient for countering climate change. What we intend to do, if this is the portion. This is the portion. What is clear in my mind is that there is no one political, social, institutional instrument to tackle global warming. All of them have to come together. And there was a time then when we were seeing the entire globe as a global village, but now we are seeing this individual measures. Again, very important point of the article. You know what is Inflation Reduction Act of US, how it is banning imports from other countries. The Europe Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, very important for this year's mains, very important for next year prelims. We have already discussed about it. The blockers on technology of trade and rising tariff barriers reflect the pendulous swings of economic nationalism. So we've come back to this, but at the same point of time, this is a global problem. We need to have global solutions for this. In the end, this article basically says that and this is something that I've already talked to you about in D3 program. The essence of D3 program is this, that our brain, we have something called as neuroplasticity, that our brain can expand if put under pressure, and this is what we are hoping for, that our brain expand and understand that we need to think beyond this ethnic and nationalistic views, and we need to think about Earth if we have to sustain life on it. And then we need to have geocivics and geoscience override geopolitics and geoeconomics. So again, a quote that you can probably note down for your answer writing. A very, very important article for you. Then the other article, Data Privacy and the Child. This is a very specific article, but still we will read it because children are one of the stakeholders of Data Privacy Act. So recently we've passed the DPDP, the Digital Personal Data Protection Bill. You should also be knowing about all the other three, as well as the Telecommunication Bill replaces the Telegraph Act, and the Digital India Bill replaces the Technology Act. So all these three bills you should be aware of. Now the article talks about that only 15% of children actually use internet, and they are major stakeholders, and we need to see what are the regulations of the bill with respect to this. Now the online activities are not just restricted to gaming and learning. It has also other activities that students and children are using social media for. And what we have introduced is that there are three conditions for data processing of children. The first condition is that obtaining verifiable parental consent. So parental consent should be there. The second thing is there should not be anything that causes detriment on the well-being of a child, and the third thing is there should be no tracking of, monitoring of. But at the same point of time, these measures can be relaxed if the government wants. So, for example, we want to track a child's education, that how well has he performed, how well is he doing. So you need to track that child's activities. You want to give him some homework, you want to track him. So in tech industry, the government might give some kind of relaxation, but that is now built in this. So there is no hard and fast rule that is built in the act now. There are relaxations that the government of India can give. Apart from that, we already know in DPDP Act that the government of India can give relaxation to any instrumentality of the state, any organization that it wants, because these conditions are not to be, the government is not bound by these conditions. The government has been given itself a carte blanche with respect to management. The other thing is that the previous version of the bill obligated all entities to obtain parental consent for every individual below 18 years old before processing their data. This would have been made the online transaction very onerous. So now the no longer there. Welcome change. DPDP bill was introduced and allows government to prescribe a lower lower the age for certain entities that could process children's data without obtaining parental consent. At the same point of time, entities will have to demonstrate that the process of children data is in a verifiable safe manner. Then how will they show it that it's a verifiable safe manner? Although graded and risk-based approach is much needed, the government should come up with, lay down what it means by verifiable safe manner. Then how does the internet provider, how does the service provider know that he's, for example, if you do a website and it says, are you above 18, you will always say, even a child will say, I am above 18. So that is not parental consent, consent. So what you can have is, you can have some kind of a puzzle, and that system should be, that the system that the child is using should have been authorized by the parent, that this thing, and maybe have some complex puzzles before you let someone use the site. For example, you might have seen these captcha codes, you might have seen this, in how many blocks do you have cars. So all of them basically can act as one step barrier. So this is something that can be done. Then the last part of the article, it's pertinent to mention that the DPDP bill allows the government to complete purpose. Presumably, the exemption are required for services like EdTech that may not need parental consent. And so this is what the article is talking about, and the other two acts I've already mentioned that you need to. Next is, now at least here they have mentioned the physical paper. You can't differentiate between anything. Now this particular article starts off with the fact, and I'm expecting a question in economics with respect to this, that he recently said that in his third term, India is the third largest. From when he started in 2014, it was the 10th largest. China is the largest economy, followed by US, and third is India. We're already there in the PPP terms. But when we talk about PPP per capita, so you need, first of all, you need to know that India's GDP is somewhere around $3.5 to $3.7 trillion, which is the fifth largest, above us. Then apart from that, what this article also talks about is what is PPP. That if we talk about purchasing power parity, that if it takes $1 to buy a burger in US, how much dollars is it, or how many PPP conversion, how many dollars would it take to buy a burger in India? So it is 3.5 in case of India and 1.7 in. So this is what PPP talks about. But unfortunately, what is being per capita, our PPP per capita is only $2,600. Other countries is very high. Now because China's and its population went under control and its GDP increased, therefore its per capita GDP PPP, it's around $23,000, whereas that of US, because its population is low and its GDP is very high, it is $80,000. And how do we move ourselves? So the idea is that we need to, and for that it says that we need to move people from low productivity jobs to high productivity jobs. One of the key issues in our labor market is 45% of our labor is still involved in the agrarian sector. We need to move them from the agrarian sector or make agrarian sector more in R&D, rural infrastructure, liberalization of agricultural markets, something that we will. Then urbanization needs to be followed, and we need to have high productive, reducing our poverty. Remember the Niti Aayog article that we've reduced our poverty from 25% to 4. This article also talks about certain positives. It starts with the political, last part of the first column stuff, that why the forest we already know why the Forest Conservation Act was there, that we wanted diversion of forest from forest to non-forest, deemed forests which were not notified by the Supreme Court. And then what this article says is that we need to have developmental work in the border areas. We need to have development work in the tribal areas, in the Naxal affected left-wing areas, and because of this their economy will also increase. This will also increase in zoos and safaris as well, have more control over minor forest products. It gives them that right, so it will lead to empowerment of tribals and also the people who are living in that area. And this is what has seen in tiger reserves as well. Entire communities have benefited out of tiger reserves because all these people who are living in the buffer zones are able to provide either hotel services or restaurant services or some kind of services, ecotourism services, and that has also been the case throughout the world as well. These are the benefits that are going to come out of this. Page number 13, revised manufacturing norms for drug firms. What changes? Why? We already know that the government has recently directed all the pharmaceutical companies to follow what is called as GMP. Again, something in good governance. Again, something that you need to sector. Health sector as well. I'm expecting a question in this year mains. Now, what we'll do also is that once this year's mains is asked, we'll start going through those questions and we'll see how many of these questions can we write, how many of these questions can affairs. You've not read anything. Even if you've not read anything, why do we read newspapers? The importance of reading newspapers and not just relying on Vision IS or all other or Vajiram and Ravi to give us summaries. The good manufacturing practices their processes with the global standard. Large companies with turnover of more than 250 crores have been given 6 months, and less than that have been given a year. Why the new rules? Because we already know the issues in Gambia, in Uzbekistan, as well as in and then eye infection problems in case of Sri Lanka as well. On par of the global standards to the inspection of 160 found that only 20% of them were. Is that countries have reported alleged contamination of Indian manufactured syrups, eye drops, and eye oils. And in fact, the implementation of revised GMP as listed in drugs and cosmetic rules. Homework for you. All the different kinds of schedules, X, Schedule H, you need to know all of them under the drug and was suggested in Chintan Shivir after the incidents. The stakeholders are also suggesting creating of countrywide IT platform that can bring uniformity across states to be processed, to be followed, and quality of manufacturing manufacturing. What are the big changes? The big changes are that pharmaceutical quality systems, quality risk management, quality product quality review, validation of it. Most of these companies, next column, most of these companies need to keep their samples stored under recommendation conditions and testing parameters from time to time so that they can be tested in stability chambers and see that whether there is any contamination. How will the changes help? Become more certified, and all of these changes are now coming from 1st of August. So this is the entire article, very important article. The other article is full circle on farm reforms. Little bit of history, but I'll give you the summary of the article. With a lot of pomp and show, we had introduced these farm laws. These were 3 farm laws that we will allow farmers to sell their products to anyone in the country. Then we will have no essential commodities act. Everyone can store whatever amount of commodities that you can have. Something called as contract farming, where there can be contract between the farmer and the manufacturer and the seller. While the spirit was this, the government has gone completely against this. The government in the last 1.5 years have banned the export of wheat. Then and now it has banned the export of rice, parboiled, non-parboiled rice, and non-basmati rice. And apart from that, stock limits have already been put on pulses and urad. So all of and now you have essential essential commodity act being applied to wheat as well. Now what we have seen is that the government has and it kind of compares this to a historical parallel that was there in 1947. I don't find that interesting, but if you want to read that, you can read that. But I just want you to read at least the first half before the historical aspect. Then it talks about that what had happened in 1947, what Gandhi was also in favor of not having any controls. But then at that point of time, we were not self-sufficient.
Therefore, we had to reintroduce controls, but we have, although our stocks is at the 5-year low, but still it is more than what is required. So this is what the article is. Then last two articles, page number 15. IT returns is that there are 2 lakh people who have filed an income tax more than 1 crore rupees as financial year. 80%, which shows higher inequality that is coming in, that is going into the country, and you have around 5, and we are the people who are basically sustaining the entire nation. It's us, the taxpayers. But apart from that, I'm going to tell you about inequality. Where you use this is in inequality. You can use this data point. The other article is a monetary policy. Why the RBI is supposed to meet, the MPC is supposed to meet between the 8th and the 10th August, and it will decide upon the CPI. But because inflation has been high in the last one and a half months, despite the fact that it is less than 6%, and in many ways vegetable inflation was very high, cereal inflation is very high. That petroleum prices have been increased after the OPEC cut. The Federal Reserve of US and the European Central Bank have already raised their interest rate. We already have surplus liquid, go for liquidity withdrawal from the system, and no change in policy stance, which basically means that which the RBI, the banks can borrow from RBI, will remain the same. And one more article that if you want to read, you can read the US Fed, ECB hike rates, FPI pull of approximately $1 billion. If the rates in US, if the interest rates in US and Europe are high and not that high, then what will happen is there will be flow of capital from India to these countries where they can earn a better return. So that's about class. I will meet you and we'll cover